Dustin, Burton, and Jose, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks so much.
Yeah.
We're excited to be here.
Hello.
So first and foremost, because this is a podcast about gay dads and their families, anyone that we have on, we like to just get a little bit of background on their family creation story. For you two, Dustin and Burton, how you two met, how you decided to start your family, and then Jose, we'd love your backstory as well. But why don't we start with you two, Dustin and Burton?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, so we met, how many years ago was this now?
About 15,
Yeah.
16 years ago.
So we met 15, 16 years ago, and we were friends for the longest time before it ever turned romantic, which was it was really nice.
How old school. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, because we've been around the same friend groups and circles. So we
knew all the skeletons in the closet.
Exactly.
Just, I think when you're often dating someone, it takes a while to really get to know someone. And we truly knew each other's hearts. We knew what we were about. And so, it was actually pretty magical. And then it turned romantic one day.
Yeah. I mean, we both kind of ended up at the same place at the same time in our journey, right?
Yeah.
Dustin was actually on his way. He was moving out to New York at the time, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about moving to DC myself and moving out of Raleigh. And Dustin was in a bar, and I walked up to him and said, "Hey, I'm single now. Do you want to go on a date?" And we took it from there. So
that easy, huh? Wow. And so did you both always know you wanted kids, or was that a different journey for you both? Or so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've always wanted kids. Even since I was very young, I knew I wanted kids. And that was a struggle, right? Because I knew I was gay at the same time. And so that was my largest struggle with coming out. Wasn't actually just being gay. It was just that I would probably never have a family, because you have to think about, this was like 1995. And so there were no role models at the time of two dad families. And there was no role models at the time for gay relationships too. I mean, maybe there was Will and Grace and some other things like that, but there wasn't many role models to look up to. So this is something I've always wanted. And then that was one of the
criteria
requirements for when Dustin and I dated. It was just like, I was like, "Hey, do you want kids or not?" Because I needed kids.
Well, the truth.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I always find this, on Gays with Kids, we're constantly profiling people that was like, from the time I was 4, I knew I wanted to have kids, but I also very much was not in the camp of like knowing that I wanted kids at all until it happened. So I'm always much more interested in folks that was like maybe not like top of mind and what kind of got you there, or and what it's like now.
So that was me. Like I really didn't think that was a possibility. It was mainly because the way I grew up was in a family that wasn't super open to, even me being gay. And I just, as I kind of ventured into finding myself, there was a lot of, I don't want to say trauma, but kind of trauma. When I came out, I ended up having to go through conversion therapy, and then I, went weekly to have deliverance sessions where I was having demons cast out of me. So, that really kind of put this dark, place on my life where I just was spiraled into depression. And so I never thought that I would ever see myself on the other side of that, where I would be married happily with kids, being so public. So it really was until I met Burton, truly, where I realized that could be a possibility for my life. Because I think a lot of gay people go through this, where they think, or maybe at least our age or older, felt like this was just an impossible thing to dream about. So why even dream about it? And I do think that you can have a really full relationship with somebody not having a family. Because I look back on past relationships, and had they worked out, had there not been other bumps in the road, I'm sure we would have been happy without children. But I'm so grateful that I met someone who that was a priority. And I have always loved kids. So the fact that I'm able to be a father, it's just been such a rewarding thing.
That's amazing. So, I mean, I never wanted kids, never thought they were in my life plan either. And so I'm a donor to a lesbian couple, very good friends of mine who like sprung this on me a decade ago to see if I would consider it. And I did, a full 180 where I literally talked about it for like six 7 months with like everyone, like my barista knew about it. I was like, I needed to, I wasn't sure what to do because it was like, I didn't really like kids that much, but I am so thankful for them because otherwise I honestly think I would have gone through life with that, unless I'd met someone that was like, it was, really important to them. But so yeah, kind of a blessing in disguise to have someone else kind of help you realize that it's something that you can do and that it's a very fulfilling thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, Jose, let's hear yours.
Well, let's see. So my husband and I got married, and this was back in 2010. And initially our intention wasn't to have kids, but then I don't know, there was like a shift for him. I knew I always wanted kids, but I think he needed to get there, and he took a little bit longer. And then we had our son. This was like March 2013, Avery. And we did it through surrogacy. And so we did, one of his, one of mine. And I thought like 100% I was going to be the victor in that situation, but then came out this like blonde white boy. Like, damn it. And I think that what was really interesting is that when Avery was 2 months old, Tim came out of the bedroom, the guy who needed some like, some help along the way to becoming a dad. He's like, babe, you know what I'm thinking? I'm like, pizza or Chinese, what are we going for? And he's like, nope, I think we should have more kids. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
I was sort of like shocked in that moment. And we decided to go for it again with the same, using the same egg donor, but this time I pushed him out of the way. We're going to make sure we're going to use my stuff and the same surrogate. And then what happened when we were, so at 10 weeks, we found out we were pregnant with twins. And then the following week, my husband went away on a business trip and he unexpectedly passed away. So it was a heart attack. It was on a business trip in his sleep. And I think like on top of all the grieving that I had to go through, I also had 6 days to make a decision to follow through the pregnancy, because at 12 weeks, you can't make that decision anymore. And for me, I was very clear that I was going to abort because, I thought like, who the fuck am I to like raise 3 kids on my own? And, as the story goes, I woke up the morning of Tim's funeral service, and I sat at the edge of the bed. It was still dark outside, and it hit me that my son just lost his father, and what if something were to happen to me? So I definitely did not want to leave him alone in this world. So not only did I make a decision to follow through the pregnancy, but I also announced that we were pregnant while giving Tim's eulogy. Nobody knew that we were pregnant at that time, but I also thought that was like the perfect moment to do it, because once I put it out there, like I've got to follow through. But to have a room full of 300-400 people, I can't remember how many people, but to have that love and support, and yeah, here we are 9 years later, and we're thriving and striving and doing all kinds of fun things. And yeah, and then well, I'm sure we're going to get into all the social media stuff, but it's been a bit of a whirlwind recently.
Wow, that is unbelievable. I'm so sorry to hear about that. And well, I mean, you're amazing to be able to raise 3 kids too. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and again, it didn't come without its like big support system. I definitely had, our nanny was already in place. I had all the friends and family members, but then when the girls did arrive, I didn't mess around. I was like, I need a night nurse. And I got a night nurse, and she was only supposed to be there for 4 weeks, but I had her for 4 months. And it was actually her at 4 months. She's like, Jose, like, I gotta go.
you're like, no.
Cut the cord on me.
Captive.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, Jose has written and talked about this so many times beautifully, very transparently for Gays with Kids and many other places. And, I know that you've gotten so good at retelling this story, but it still can't be easy to have to relive it over and over again. But we thank you so much for being as transparent and honest with us as you are about this, because it's an important story. It's an incredible one. And also, I think probably has something to do with how people relate to you. Because I guess my guess is, and correct me if I'm wrong, so kind of transitioning to your social media following, I mean, you became known and kind of blew up during the pandemic, just posting these adorable videos of you and your kids doing dances and little skits. And, you know, they're adorable. And I think they probably, you would have blown up regardless, but then people also connect to this backstory and learn about you and what you've been able to accomplish and do. And I have to assume that this is part of what really draws people to you and your story, but I'm putting words in your mouth. So let me ask you, like, what that transition was like to start first being so public about this story with so many people, and then the connection it seems to have drawn with your followers.
Yeah. So what was interesting is when my husband passed in 2013, there were a couple media outlets that caught on because they thought that story was, you know, what it was. And so, you know, like Huffington Post, People Magazine did something, but then, you know, over time, it just sort of, it died, right? The story just kind of went away. And then during the pandemic, you know, like a lot of us parents, we were struck with triple duty, right? So parenting and homeschooling and trying to make our businesses survive. You know, as a wedding planner, events just shut down. And my scripted response is that, you know, part of the reason, which is attached to the real response, but, you know, I did it because I needed a way to break that stuff up so that I wouldn't go crazy. And you know, my au pair had to go back to Argentina because the borders were closing. So I was really left alone with all three of them to do all of those things. And so I was like, you know, let's just make some silly videos in between all this madness. But the real reason, which not a lot of people know about, is I did it because I realized that I wasn't going to get laid anytime soon. No, because, you know, I mean,
gotta distract yourself somehow. Might as well do it through social media. That's amazing.
Yeah, you know, like as a dad, you know, it's
Burton, is this why you're doing all your videos?
Suspicion is
yeah, you know, I think that the way that the kids, you know, when as a parent, when kids drive you nuts, drive you crazy, there's a way that we choose to rejuvenate. And so like when my kids would drive me crazy, I'm like, it's time for a date or it's time for a hookup or whatever it is. And then I could come back and be super dad. But I was like, holy shit, like, I don't know when this is going to happen. And so
even super dad needs to get laid sometimes. I hear you.
Yeah. And look, I think that the relatability comes in from, look, at the time during the pandemic, there was so much going on. You know, you had Black Lives Matter. You obviously had the pandemic going on. It was like a big political mess. Not that it's not now. And I think we were also creating some political posts too. And I think what happened is, you know, people were looking for uplifting stories and nobody knew about my story. They just knew this TikTok guy that makes wholesome, funny videos. But what happens when you go viral, then people want to know, well, why is he a single dad? And then once the media got hold of why I became a single dad, it's sort of like my story had a second life to it. And I think with so much going on in the world, people needed to hear something really, you know, uplifting and positive. And let's be honest, you know, I think our family checked off a lot of boxes for a lot of media outlets. You know, some people might be like, we need a Latinx and we need a LGBTQ or we need a parent. And I sort of like fit all those categories that, you know, just seem to work. And I think a lot of parents realize that even though they may not fit in the Latinx or LGBTQ, they found our content relatable.
Yeah.
It's insane how popular gay dads suddenly become with followers in June with like Pride and Father's Day. It's like, oh, where you been all the rest of the year? So Dustin and Bert, let's hear a little bit about what kind of how'd you get your start in social media? Was it something you were doing intentionally? Did you kind of stumble into it like Jose? Let's hear the backstory.
Yeah, so there was never like a business plan.
Yeah,
right?
there wasn't like this is what we want to do.
Yeah,
we like any other family, proud family. We just started sharing pictures of our kids, right? We were like, this is, you know, that we want to tell our journey, but at the same time, we started realizing that a lot of people were reaching out to us because, you're kind of a role model in a way, and not that we're perfect by any means, but still people needed to understand how to go along this surrogacy process. So they reach out to you and they ask questions, and you continue to do that more and more. And so that was just, we started sharing our lives even more, because we're like, this is really great for the community. It's really great for visibility.
That was a catalyst, really.
That was a catalyst for this. And then, it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah, it definitely was not intentional. Like I think, like I had mentioned, my past of having such shame of my identity, finally, when I kind of came to full circle, and I'm at the point where I'm so proud of my relationship, and I'm so proud of the fact that I'm a father. And people the numbers started to grow to following our story. And I think at that point, as the numbers started growing and as we got a lot more attention, I think Burton and I then had to have a conversation about it. Like, what is this now? Like, this is something completely different than what we were originally doing. And like he was saying, as we're getting email after email of people saying, you helped me come out of the closet, or you changed my perspective of what a gay person is, or what a gay family looks like. That was really powerful. And it really, especially because of my background, that really felt like a place that I needed to be that person to help, give advice, give some guidance to, and set not necessarily an example, but one example. Like like he was saying, we're not a perfect couple, but this is one reference point of what a gay family looks like.
So all three of you do other things besides be influencers. But with the amount of content you all churn out, I'm impressed that you're able to juggle everything that you do on top of this. So keeping it with you two for a second. So you recently bought a farm.
That was a COVID purchase.
That was a COVID deal. Yeah.
Wow, you couldn't just get a dog?
We got them too.
We got dogs.
We got two.
Dog sourdough starter kit, and you guys got a farm on top. That's amazing. Well, so so you are able to incorporate a lot of what you're learning about being, first-time farmers into your videos, which are great. And I encourage everyone to go check them out. We'll obviously put links to both of your pages and the blog post that goes out with this, but talk a little bit about what that's been like. And then just also juggling other responsibilities in addition to being, these influencers.
Yeah. I think that we're a little insane. Both Bert and I are we've always been people that like to take on a lot. And I think that was probably one of the reasons why we were even attracted to each other, because we're both just get it done kind of guys
and work around the clock no matter what.
Yeah. So, yes, before COVID, I owned a salon. And when COVID, and he's always worked in the tech industry. Yeah. And so when COVID happened, it really made us have to assess what we were doing, because I started being a spokesperson for a hair care brand. I was doing the home shopping network, where I was like flying overseas a lot. And then we had babies. Yeah. And then with his new role, he was planning to fly all over the country. Yeah. And we kind of were looking at each other when COVID made us stop in our tracks. And we were like, what were we doing? Yeah.
Like those times where we were like, okay, there's going to be a week period here where neither one of us are going to be in town. So we need the nanny to watch them for a full week. Those types of things where our kids are not going to see it, 1 week out of every month, our kids are not going to see us at all.
And we never let that happen. Yeah. But it made us stop and think, why were we even considering that? Yeah. And, not that I'm not grateful for COVID, but definitely the silver lining that came from that was that pause in our life, because I think when you're spinning a million plates, you just don't know how to stop. And it forced us to stop and really reassess our lives. And we ended up buying Burton's family's farm, which has been in his family for,
hundreds of years,
generations. Yeah. And we decided that we wanted to do this as a family and build a place that we can invite the community to come and experience this land. And we're really excited about it. So that's kind of what we're doing on top of everything else, so.
And on top of that too, we want to leave a legacy, right? when you, it's something we want to pass down to our kids. We want to do it. We can't pass our Instagrams down to.
They're not going to want it.
They're not going to want it, really. We'll give them the Google Drive with all the photos. But but you know what I'm saying? We want this legacy. It's a legacy that's been in our family. And we just think it's something beautiful that we can pass down. We can do it with our kids. We can, as our family grows, we can do it with our community and our friends. And we actually do already. Our family's involved with this farm. His brother moved into the farmhouse and is really helping out with getting things started. So yeah, it's become a family affair, which is just amazing.
And since then, I sold my salon, and I mean, we're not outrageous, right? So we understand balance. And, you know, a lot of times the reason why I think this has been really helpful is because I'm able to be with my kids a lot more. I've let go of the salon life, and I'm kind of overseeing the farm, and I'm home more, and I'm kind of the one editing everything with social media. And it really allows me to be more hands-on, which I'm incredibly grateful for having that opportunity. And Burton works from home now. So we're all together all the time. So, and that's been such a blessing, because that just wasn't the way it was before.
Right. And so where were you before the farm? Where were you located?
We're still here. We're in Raleigh, North Carolina.
You've been in Raleigh. Okay.
Yeah. And we're still here. And the farm is about 15 minutes down the road from here.
Okay. All right. So this wasn't some massive like city to rural excursion.
That's the great thing about it too, is what we're planning on doing is so close to the city. And it feels like it's a very special place. It's kind of it's like a black hole, right? It's just, you don't even realize that you're so close to the city, but it's really
once you're there, you feel like you've driven hours away to like the mountains or something. It's very wild. But yeah, it's very special.
That's incredible. And Jose, you are also a wedding planner, and a very busy one as far as your Instagram looks like. So talk a little bit about what it's like to do that on top of all of the everything you do for your social media channels.
All I'm going to say is after this wedding season, I need to go visit the farm.
Please. We need your advice. Anyway.
Get some fresh air.
That's what we're going to have, is weddings out there too. So.
I'm there for that. I think I'm smack dead center of, I'm in the middle of 15 weddings right now. I had two this past weekend at the Rainbow Room, and then one in a synagogue on Sunday. And then now this week I have one coming down the road, right down the road. And I don't know, we're just like insane with, this year, they say that there's more weddings this year than since 1985 or 86. Yeah. And that is so true. I think that, I still have a 2019 couple. They hired me in 2019, but the pandemic kept pushing them to June 11th. And the gentlemen have said, it's like, it was such a blessing. Got to spend a lot of time with my kids and be present. But definitely out of the pandemic, here's the problem, and I think maybe not everybody shares this, but during the pandemic, we all made a decision that we're gonna be much more thoughtful and much more calming, and just the way Dustin and Bert have analyzed their life during the pandemic. And I feel like we've come out of the other side like busier and crazier. It's kind of like when you go on meds. It's like the pandemic was us being on meds, right? Like we were all just, doing our thing, trying to get by, and we need a little assistance. And then all of a sudden, it's like when you go cold turkey at the end of the pandemic, and then it's just more extreme than it was before. That's kind of like, to be honest, the space I'm feeling right now, because now, we're managing NYC Gay Dad, which is an LLC now, and then Jose Rolón Events. And the beautiful thing, and it's such a blessing, is that they're feeding each other. I got this Rainbow Room wedding that I just had came through TikTok, my personal TikTok, right? Oh. And so that keeps feeding, right? And I'm flying out in 2 weeks to film a wedding show with Tara Lipinski. I can make that public right now. And we're filming all of season 1, 10 episodes in 1 week. And then before that, I'm speaking at a conference in New Orleans. So this is for the first time, I'm going to be away from my children for 2 weeks. And that I've never done that before. I've done maybe 4 or 5 days, but it's never been 2 weeks. And so I don't know, there is a little space of, I think, overwhelm at the moment. But luckily I do have systems and people in place. I think, the beauty of doing all these sponsorships and these campaigns, it's allowed me to filter that into my wedding planning business so I could hire someone full time.
Yeah.
Right. And so that has been a blessing so that I could focus more over here. So yeah, I don't know. That's where I'm at right now. There's just a lot going on being in the middle of summer, weddings and the campaigns.
Well, the next season will probably be all the divorces and you don't handle that. So you're probably good for a little bit, hopefully. I hope things calm down.
That's right.
Two for the price of one.
Package deal. That's a good idea. But so I guess you guys are kind of touching on this already, but I'm just curious what it's like. So, Gays with Kids, we're obviously a big visible brand as well, but it's not me in front of the brand. It's not any of our staff as much as it is our community, right? We still pick and choose what we show and when, and we understand the importance of visibility and what we're helping to do and helping so many people, just like you guys, we have people reach out to us all the time saying, never thought this could happen for me. We have people that are coming out to us. And it's, so I don't take that lightly, and the importance of the visibility of what we're all doing. But for you guys, it's also, you're having to balance this against, your actual families and your faces and your kids' faces. And you're having to pick and choose, obviously, what you're showing and what you're not showing. And I'm just curious how you kind of make those decisions, and what it's like to have people, feel like they might own a part of you, or if that's how it feels like. And, the kind of the demands for content, obviously social media is such a content monster. So there's a lot of questions in there, but I think you get the general gist. Why don't we stick with you, Jose, first to get a sense from you? Is that, I guess the first question is, how do you balance what you show and what you don't show, and what is it like to have so many people kind of demanding you as a personality?
I guess one thing that I'll share is, even after we went viral, I didn't really see anything beyond like our followers just continuing to like our stuff. And I knew we had new followers, but I remember the first time that the post that actually made me realize there was something bigger than ourselves, which ended up being what they call a negative viral. And so it was when I think the vice president or president of Goya came out in support of Trump. And what I did was I simulated a funeral for the Goya products with my children, right? So I had my—
I remember that video, yeah.
Yeah, I had my kids dress up in black. I had, we took down all the Goya products, we put it in a rest in peace box, and it was raining that day, and we had it floating down the street, and we were dancing at the end, right? And for 2 weeks, it was insane. Because if you even Googled Goya on Instagram, you had 3 images at the very top. It was Alexandra Ocasio, because she was the first one to come out against it. You had Ivanka Trump that was holding a Goya can in the White House. And then you had me and my kids walking down the steps. And so that ended up creating like death threats. People were calling me a faggot, saying, I'm raising my kids to hate America, to waste food. And of course, we donated to the church. My kids didn't even know that the camp at the time, they were like 4 or 5, right? So they didn't even know that it had to do with Trump. I was like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have fun, whatever. And so that was sort of like the first time I realized that I'll never not share how I feel politically, but I realized that I do need to be a little bit more thoughtful how I do it, because at the end of the day, we're parents and our job is to protect our children, right? And so that's been really interesting. And I try, whenever I do anything political, I try to make it positive. And obviously with the recent events of the what's been going on in Texas with the children, 19 kids being murdered, I'm clearly going to make a statement about that. And this time I chose to do it without my children, right? And so, because that's something that I need to be a little bit more thoughtful about. And I think in terms of like the balance, I think, having strangers go up to my kids has been really interesting and a balance. I think that people do come up to us and really like they're invested, right? The engagement seems big enough where people feel invested, and they run up to my kids, they scream sometimes. And it took a while for my kids to get used to, because they didn't really know how to react to that. And so now they're aware, and now they know how to respond better to when, you know, strangers come up to them and bring up things about their lives.
Are they like, no pics, no autographs? Right?
No, they're really sweet, and they're really, you know, they do come across as humble about the whole thing. But yeah, that's kind of like where we're at with that. The one thing I'll also share, because I think Dustin and you guys, in terms of like all the social media campaigns, that's been sort of an interesting journey too, because, you know, now that we are sort of where we're at as influencers, sometimes you get some of those core followers that are like, oh, look at them selling, you know, oh God, they're doing another campaign. And you know, that's really interesting to me, because I think a lot of people don't realize that we now have another business, right? And for the most part, we certainly plan on wanting to stay within, you know, in integrity and be behind the products. But just like any job, there's going to be a couple things that we might sell out for, because you know what, we're getting paid $30K to do this, you know, and that's okay, because we have children to support, you know. And so I think that's sort of like the balance we're sort of having now, which I think you guys have had for a while now. You guys were doing campaigns before the pandemic, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I'm not interviewing you guys,
No,
but
please go ahead.
yeah, I'm kind of curious sort of how you've been able to do that balance. Cause you know, I noticed that you guys do a lot of campaigns, and they're beautifully shot, well done. And you guys have a really good balance with it. And so I'm just kind of curious about your perspective on it.
I mean, I think that we've always been really honored that, you know, companies want that family attached to their brand, and it's always brands that we feel comfortable with. I mean, I think the most important thing to know is that we don't say yes to everything. You know, we get a lot of emails and a lot of interest, and we are constantly, you know, selecting things that feel right, that feel authentic, because I think at the end of the day, if you're not going to be authentically into talking about things, then people see right through that, right? Yeah. So yes, it is. I think on one hand, it's really important because it's allowing me to be with my family. I mean, before I was chained to a hair chair where I was like away from my family all day long. I owned the business, and, you know, I was literally with a client all day. I didn't have that flexibility and freedom. And now I do, and that's been such a blessing for our family. But I'm also quite proud that, you know, some of these companies have not just within our pool and our reach, but then they go outside of theirs, which is millions.
Yeah, and they put it on their websites, they put it on print, they put it on their own social media.
Or we've been in ads before, and they're like, this is a family, and we believe in this family. And actually, you know, seeing the backlash only allows me to realize how important that imagery is for us to not keep hiding and not show that we actually exist is only hurting our family, because, you know, we take the sticker shock off of it when we in hopes that when my kids go to school, I'm hoping that their parents of the other students have seen our Instagram, and so they're having these conversations in their own home. This is a family, and even if that knee-jerk reaction is negative, you know, let them have that outside of the face of my children, so that they can work through that. And hopefully they'll watch along, look at our YouTube, and see that we're just as basic and boring as every other, you know, healthy family out there, right? So, I mean, I think that's been the catalyst of why we do what we do. And I also think, like, you know, when it comes to balance, you really have to set those boundaries. We never force our children to do anything that they don't want to do. Yep. And if I talk to a company or a brand that we feel really good about and we're excited to work with, we say straight up, it might be Burton and I, but it might be me and my son. It might be me, my son, and my daughter. I'm not going to promise you anything, because you know, kids every day, they change their mind about what they're into. Like our daughter at one point was like such a ham. She wanted to be in every video and picture and things like that. And now she's like, I don't want to be in that. And our son is like,
He's
he's the
all about
one
it.
that's like, make a video of this, shoot me, take a picture of this, like, and so you just have to be, number one, a good parent, and listen to your children, and be aware of that. And I think that Bert and I are mindful enough to know that, and you might, if you've been following us for a long time, it used to be very family heavy.
Yep.
And as we've got, through the last few years, it's been a lot of the narrative just Burton and I, a lot of images of just me or me and Burton, because I think that at some point we want to give our children the privacy to them to develop to whoever they want to be. Yeah. And if they choose to then want to be insulting, I mean, I think, like Jose's children are old enough to like where it's fun, and this is part of their
it's bonding time. It's fun,
and other kids are doing it too. I mean, you just have to be sensitive to where your children are at, because you just can't force that to happen.
And we do have good balance. It looks like because we have, we're feeding two Instagram channels, a YouTube, and then a TikTok. And it looks like we just do nothing but film and take pictures all day long. And that's not it at all. We've become very efficient at knocking some stuff out. Even with our YouTubes, just think they're only maybe 10 to 15 minutes long. Yeah. And it looks like all we do is just film our family. And that's not it at all. We know a couple highlights. We know how to capture a few moments and then put that all together in a beautiful storytelling moment. Yeah. In a very short period of time. We don't have hours and hours of video or pictures that we're
like most of the days of the week I'm walking around in stained clothes and like in my boxers. I mean, it's
the truth.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say quickly on the sponsorship angle. I mean, the fact that you all are, giving of yourselves so much in your families and for what you're doing for visibility. I'm like, get your coin, like in the fact that you think you get backlash for some of the work you do. I mean, this is just, it seems like just the, minor detail that you're getting compensated for putting your families out in this way. And what a fantastic turn of events that now it seems to be like, you're way behind if you don't have gay dads as your spokespeople now, right? Especially around this time of year. But it's, this wasn't the case when Gays with Kids first launched, over 8 years ago. So it is very nice to see you guys in Old Navy ads and to see that this is something that's almost a requirement for brands to be able to say that we support not just the LGBTQ community, but the right to be parents and to raise kids. But so going back to what you guys were saying about Jose, I know we've talked about this a little bit, but you were saying that your kids do come to you often with, they're getting excited about the idea of creating a video and they'll come to you with ideas. Can you talk just a little bit about what that's like right now for your kids and if they're still kind of into proposing ideas and what it's like to collaborate with them?
Yeah, I think, Dustin said it well, which is, it's so important that you meet your kids where they're at, right? And so where Lila was at a few years ago is completely different from where she is now. And Avery, for example, I think, he sees he has different likes and he has different needs. And so he is sort of like more like behind the scenes now where he's like, Papa, what do you think if we did this? And I actually had him in charge of coming up, writing, directing, and filming what do you call it? A post. And so for him, he was so proud to do that. And he still talks about it to this day. And this was like a year and a half ago. And he did, and I give him all the credit, and he loved it. And I think, but there are some days now where Avery is now 9 and we did the Lizzo dance the other day, and Avery was like, "Yo, I'm out," and I did not hesitate whatsoever. I was like, "Cool, that's it's all good." So I think that for Lila, I love to capture her playing sports because that's where she's at. With London, it's about beauty and makeup. And so, that could be a little controversial at her age, but it's about meeting her where she's at and being a little bit more thoughtful. And then, Avery's more like conversational. And so those things are important. And those have to weave into the campaigns. And I'm the same way. I don't promise any of the folks that it's going to be all of us. And there have been ones where it's just me. Like, I think you mentioned the Old Navy one. That was a phenomenal campaign. The fact that we were part of this massive Christmas campaign push was really just really wonderful and totally felt honored to do that. And one of the things that I wanted to share is in terms of like the reach, is, I kind of describe it in the wedding industry. We have a lot of speakers, and there's one speaker that gets backlash because she speaks on LGBTQ issues, but she considers herself straight. And people in our community are coming after her, being like, you should not be making money off of speaking on our topics. And I'm like, fuck that. Are you kidding me? Because there's allies are a big reason why we have been able to get to where we are. And what happens is people that are homophobic aren't going to come see me speak on stage. They're going to want to see somebody they can relate to. And so that's how I feel about the campaigns, is that there are so many people that would never follow us on social media, but they'll certainly, you know, they like Gillette or they like the, you know, whatever products they have, and they're seeing us for the first time in a different light. And so to me, that's just like magical. To me, it's just proving that we are pushing the needle forward. And although, you know, same-sex marriage has been around for a while, and there have been LGBTQ parents for years, I still feel like we are very much at the forefront, you know, in the big picture. So I think we're all doing a phenomenal job as a collective doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, until we get that narrative where you don't have to fight for things like the Don't Say Gay bill and all these other things, you have to know that we are still in a fight for representation.
Yeah.
And that to me is, you know, at the end of the day, that is what's keeping our kids safe, is that visibility. The more exposure, and it doesn't have to be exposure of us, but I'm saying us as a community.
Yeah.
Visibility that way, that creates a safer place for our kids, because it creates conversation and it brings awareness to our existence. And that's really, really important.
You know, every now and then I still get someone that will say, why do you have to be NYC gay dad? Why can't you just be a dad? And, you know, I got that like 9 years ago, because there was like very few of us. And I did it as a way, while using hashtag gay dads, as a way for us to find each other and discover each other. And people think that we have moved far, but things like, you know, the Don't Say Gay bill and all these other things that are going across all these states proves on why we're not there yet. That's the goal. The goal would be, I would like to just be dad. I would like to just be papa, but we're not close. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
We get the same thing at Gays with Kids all the time. It's like, why I got to be gay? I'm like, well, because, you know, we're not there yet. There's a reason that we have a whole website and Instagram dedicated to gay fathers, and it's because we need it. I guess what you guys are both kind of hinting at here is, and something that I say quite often is that, you know, assuming that we can hold on to the rights that we do have, marriage, non-discrimination, and, you know, here's holding, crossing our fingers that those are not going to be up for debate anytime soon. Really, the next frontier is around LGBTQ families. It's about queer parents. It's about kids. It's about queer kids in schools. And this is really the remaining frontier that we have to fight to make sure our kids are safe in school, and that they can play the sports they want to play, and that people can adopt in whatever state they want to, and that they can, you know, try to offset some of the ridiculous costs of surrogacy through like equal insurance coverage. So this is really, you know, if we do progress in the way that we're going, it is about families. And this is why I think that, you know, people might look at a TikTok video or a Gays with Kids Instagram post and think it's fluffy and light, but this is exactly what you're saying. It's about this visibility, and we got to keep it up, honestly, to keep it moving forward. So I'll get off my soapbox there for a second. But so I guess, but this also leads me to wonder, and again, just because this is personal for you three, in a way that it's really not for me. And that is, you know, are there days where you talk about your kids just being like, nah, I don't want to do this, but like you said, these are businesses for you now. Are there days where you're just like, I am sick of putting on a smile and getting in front of the camera? You know, I've just no, thank you, ma'am. Today I'm going to take the day off. But why don't we start with you, Dustin and Burton? Just are there days where you're just like, screw it, I'm turning off the camera. I'm going to read a book in a hammock somewhere.
We're human.
Oh, yeah,
we're human and we do, you know, when you see our grids, right? It looks like we're just taking a picture every day. There are times where we have content making days where we make things, and that can carry you for many days. So then,
even year. I mean, like I've repurposed pictures of Burton and I from a year ago. I mean, people people don't know that wasn't taken just that day. So we have that balance. We have to have that balance, because at the end of the day, we want our sanity, we want our happiness. And yes, we do feel like we have to turn it off. I mean, just recently we went to the beach, and we were like, we should capture this for our YouTube, and we were there for a week and we didn't film anything until the very last day, when I was like, we kind of need a like we're about to go to an aquarium, and let's film that. And that's what our YouTube was. But we just needed to not
be a family.
We just didn't want to be so we wanted to just be a family, and that's okay. And I think that you have to, we're not a slave to this. We set our boundaries, and that's okay. A lot of times our followers know, like, we try to post every single week with YouTube, but YouTube is a beast. I mean, like, editing and curating a YouTube video, I mean, it takes a lot of, it was definitely like a passion project for me. And I think it started because I always felt like Instagram was so curated, and it really didn't have that narrative.
It wasn't there wasn't depth to it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you can write things that are deep, but are people really reading that? And so we said, I think that we can reach more people this way and talk about real topics about, mental health and LGBTQ plus issues and et cetera, et cetera. And, but with that said, our followers know that sometimes we skip weeks because we're human and we're dads, and
we're like, we just can't pull it off this week. We're honest with folks, and everyone's like, no worries, we'll see you next week. Kind of thing. And so whenever you can get something out, so
you have to.
It's just,
you'll drive yourself nuts. But I mean, I on the people have to understand too, my background was in fashion before. And so I worked, with photographers and understand lighting and I know how to curate something really clean and quick. It's not necessarily meant for, not everyone has that. And Burton, honestly, I mean, I love you. He doesn't have that, but I know how to throw something together very quickly,
right?
Where it might take someone longer. And, I think the assumption is that a lot of people think that, God, they just live in this, like, this perfect little world all the time. And it's definitely not that.
Oh my God, the little I've tried to edit video over the years, I'm like, I don't know how you do it. It's really, you have to be very patient, but again, you're obviously good at it, but good for you. God bless you. Jose, so you also had some video background, right? Before you started all this. So this is probably true for you as well, that you probably approached this, came a little bit more naturally to you than your average gay.
I mean, I was a video editor before I was a wedding planner. So yeah, for me, it's similar where, when people find out that I edit my videos or that must take you a long time, actually, it really doesn't. I don't envy anyone that jumps on YouTube because I personally understand the work behind that when I used to be a video editor. But, for me, I went in sort of like the opposite direction away, but with the same intention away from Instagram, because I would say Instagram, like you said, curated. It's certainly like this in the wedding industry, where you're sort of sending your representative, right? Meaning like, your best version of yourself or your business. And it's boring. And I think that, what I loved about TikTok, it was so lo-fi. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, we could just be a little bit more raw. But for me, the goal as a single dad was to make sure I use a platform that was like quick and fast and could, cut down some of my editing time, which TikTok was able to do that. So for me, it was like, I was forced to make sure that these snippets were 60 seconds or up to 3 minutes, as TikTok allows now, because I think that, I just would not have, the energy for YouTube, but both of our intentions and goals were very similar. So I find that really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think that too, we laugh about that. We're like, Instagram is like the initial curation of who we are. And if you want to go into depth, you can see our YouTube. And if you want to just have fun, you go to our TikTok. I mean, it's like 3 different personalities, all the same messaging, but yeah. It's cool. I mean, I'm grateful for this. And I think like, you know, we were talking about how, you know, we had kind of exploded during the pandemic, at least you did as well. And I think people long to have connection.
Yeah,
and
sure.
During a time where we were not allowed to connect with people, I think that draw to be able to just kind of look in and feel connected to people that might not be someone that you know, but someone that you know admire or you think is fun, or I think that's a really powerful tool. And I think that, you know, social media in general, it is what you take, it is what you take from it, right? It can be something that really builds you up and inspires you, or it can be something that can tear you down and make you feel terrible. And if we're ever people that you walk away and you're looking and you feel terrible from, I beg you not to follow us. If, you know, if we're there to help you feel like you are inspired or have a friend or feel like you're normal being a gay person who wants something different and wants to have a family, then that's amazing. And I personally have had to do that editing of who I'm following and how does that make me feel? Do I feel less than? And if it is it necessarily them, or is this something I'm personally need to work on? So it is, and I don't envy. And I was talking to Burton about this the other day. You know, growing up, if social media was around when I was in my 18, 19, my 20s, I can assure you that no one would be following me because I was a hot mess. And I mean, I was like wild and out of control. I was in a dark place, like I had mentioned, you know, with my past. And so this younger generation of having this thing that documents you, and you put something out there and you're forever held to that voice that you put out there as a scarlet letter without knowing that there's grace and forgiveness, or not talking about something from your past that you don't want to share. You know, this is a completely new narrative that we're going to have with our kids. Yeah. That I don't envy, because I just can't imagine having to go through those awkward years, or trying to discover yourself, or trying to go against the grain on certain issues. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, the need for social media competency is going to be, you know, something that really you have to teach kids from a young age. And I want to come back to that because I have another question follow up there. But Jose, I wanted to come back to the question about whether you just take days off, or you just ever like, you know what? No, because for you, for both of you, but it sounds like you're saying you're now feeding one business with the other. So it's becoming maybe more critical that you keep them both up. And I'm wondering if that takes a little bit of the joy out of it, if it's no longer about something that's just for fun, or if it's something that you feel like it's an obligation. Do you still enjoy it?
I do still enjoy it. And my kids still enjoy it, but I think it's because you know, there was like, you know, a couple months back where we had so many campaigns to film, and the problem was, you know, my kids are away till 5, and it was, by the time I picked them up, it's dark out. And so there's like very little time to shoot campaigns. So then I would have to do it on the weekends. And I feel like it was sort of like happening for a few weeks there. And I was like, nope. And so I'm being represented by Whaler, and I contacted them and I was like, I want 5 weeks off from doing any campaigns. I want to make sure my kids feel good going into the weekend. And I want to make sure that they still enjoy it. And I think that's totally legit. That's totally okay. And I think that's something that, you know, people that are sort of interested in this influencer content world, I think it's important that you're aware that if you do get thrusted into this world, you have to find balance within the other things that you have to find balance with. You know, people do often think that it's all, I feel like I sound like it's a little bullshit, because I always get annoyed when actors are like, oh, being on set, you know, like it's so exhausting. You know what I mean? But the reality is we're dealing with personalities of children, and, you know, people don't realize how hard it's hard on a daily basis. Never mind when there's things that we have to do. So it's really important that, again, we have to meet them where they're at and the personalities, and be like, okay, this is a good time to film this. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know.
So you both now kind of touched on this. and I'm going to end up rambling here, so excuse me in advance, but it's something I think about a lot at Gays with Kids. And it is the mental health aspects of social media. Obviously, there's so much coming out about it now, which I think we all kind of intrinsically knew. And, it would be great if people could self-monitor as much as you're suggesting, Dustin. And I think, like you said, we need to teach kids from a young age how to do that, because it's not something that comes natural even to adults. But I do worry sometimes about so I'm starting this conversation from a place of like the visibility that we're all creating is important. We've covered that. It's critical. Social media is an amazing tool. One that we wouldn't have, we would have, like you're saying, Will and Grace would be our big, cultural icon. We wouldn't have all of these different outlets to push the visibility of queer parents, which we have because of social media, which is great. But I do worry sometimes about kind of this bubblegum, perfect picture family vibe that you don't see us like posting pictures of kids like having a meltdown because they won't put their socks on or whatever,
I have.
Have you? Okay, well, that's great. That's great. So I guess this is leading into my question. Oh no, you actually have. I have seen some of those photos. Yeah. So yeah, let's actually start there. So is it important to you to be showing those sides of your family that aren't quite so, white picket fence, bubblegum perfect?
Oh, definitely. I have, even before we blew up, I think I had like a yearly meltdown video that I would post. And also showing the raw sides of being a single father too. Like, today sucks. And but I think the key that a lot of people trap, what people might do wrong is if you're going through something, like this is just my opinion, don't post it and just go on a bitch rant and be miserable in the post. Like, it's okay to share your struggle, but within that post, there has to be a positive outcome, or there has to be some sort of words of wisdom on something that personally maybe you're working on, or even seek for advice within that post for that support, right? And so I think that really makes a difference when we are showing a little bit more of the authentic sides of ourselves, right? And so often when I'm struggling with something, I'll make a decision to maybe post about it on social media and then ask for help, ask for advice. And I think that really makes a difference, because people are then saying, okay, well, I'm so glad you posted about this because I thought you guys were perfect, this perfect little family, right? And so I think showing that balance definitely is important.
Yeah, absolutely. So for you two, is there, you kind of mentioned that, I don't know if this has been something that's happened repeatedly, where are people reaching out and saying that they, struggled, or that they're, that some of the content that you post is, again, at Gays with Kids, we get people, for every one comment we get about this is so inspiring, we also get, it's not an even split, but we also get people saying, I'll never have this, or or I'm single and I will never have kids, or I'm never going to meet a partner, or, all of these kind of like negative thoughts too, that are in response to our content, which, I do struggle with a little bit. So do you get much of that? And if so, how do you approach it?
We do, and we actually share. That's why we do this a lot on our YouTube, right? We want our YouTube to talk about a very specific topics, mental health being one that we talk about a lot, and then at the end it has a positive outcome and spin. And our message overall in our YouTube is taking someone on a journey and having that feel good ending to it. It's like a Full House episode. You have a little learning thing that happens there, and
a little bit of trauma.
Exactly. You feel great at the end. So it's inspiring along the way, but also by showing some bumps in the road that we, and how we get there. But we
always say we're not perfect, but I have to say, like, that is who Burton and I are. Like, we don't fight. We don't have this weird. We have a really healthy relationship, and I think that shows. And I think, like, I'm not going to be apologetic for not showing people these rough moments in our lives, because not that we don't have them, but these are personal, but we always look at what matters. Like, it's about getting ahead. It's about, these highlighted moments. We don't capture, when you're out with your friends, you get together with your girlfriends or your friends, and you're in a peak moment where you're like, "Ow, this is the best food ever." Your shiny moment, but you tripping and falling in the bathroom, you're not grabbing the camera. Look, I just fell. So, like, for instance, like, if our kids are crying and they're going through something, how awful would it be for me to then just grab my camera and be like, "Okay, wait, say that again. What's wrong with you? You're sad about something." I'm not doing that. I'm going to be there for my child. And in those amazing moments. The reason we go through the hard moments is, they're worth going through to get to the good moments. And that's the focus. And that's just who, who we are.
But we won't film it usually because we're trying to be parents, but we will talk about it later. Right? We're saying like, oh my gosh, they had a meltdown. And so we had a rough week, and here's we got through it. And so that's why we're having ice cream now.
Yeah.
It does,
and then it shows us having the ice cream. So it shows
Holland got upset because during COVID, she wanted to get her face painted at this zoo that we went to. I was like, no. And, I did capture, I don't try to do this a lot, but she was crying in the car, and I was trying to have her understand, but why, and talk about the reasons why. So she had an understanding of that. And then we took her home, and then I did her face painting at the house. So, it's just, I don't really know. I don't know. I mean, I think like we are who we are, and we try to always have a more positive outlook on everything. That's just how Burton and I are wired, and we're not negative. We're not super negative people. I mean, we're like really more optimistic with life, and so. But it doesn't mean that we are not going through hardships, because we do talk about it. And I'm not, I don't know how to.
Of course, when it's none of our individual responsibilities to solve the problems associated with social media, it's something I think we all need to be aware of and do our best to mitigate. But I actually like your suggestion there that we follow the full house method. It's like, you can't just, it's showing trauma for trauma's sake isn't helpful either. You guys are public figures. So I think whatever lesson you're able to extract from them, I mean, why would you just post like a negative thing for the sake of it? I do think that there is something important to go ahead, Jose.
Yeah, no, I was going to say like, I love that you share that, because I think that for me, the goal is, and by the way, like when I see you guys on social media, every single time I feel what you're describing, right? So I never, there's certainly some couples out there that, perhaps they're doing what they're doing for other reasons and for another purpose, but I always feel that authenticity. I'm so over that word, but I always feel that authenticity with you guys on almost pretty much like everything you do. And that's exactly what you describing. Like, no, we don't fight. We don't like fight behind the scenes like crazy. And that actually exists. And people want to create that narrative when they see something good in the world. Now, I will admit, when I've seen a couple of your shirtless posts, I might have put down a bucket of nachos. But I'm here for it too. So
I'm glad Jose said it.
But yeah, so we do. So I do talk to people one-on-one through DM. I try to respond to lots of folks, and people will say like, this looks perfect. Or you guys not fight at all? And I'll go on a long journey with them and say, absolutely not. This is how we are. And I'll go through, and so I like to do that. I don't do that in a thread, but one-on-one with folks, I try to respond to almost every single message that comes through, especially unless it's just a heart or something. But it's a genuine question where people are struggling with or trying to ask us something very personal. I try to respond and give them honest answers, and so that and trying to help them through that. And they're saying, I'm having a really tough week, and then help them through.
And we try to give couples advice, because people do ask us, and I have to say, I mean, like, Burton and I are lucky. We're one of the we're a rarity, it seems, where it's like we really love each other. I mean, he is who I'm going to grow old with. Like, I can't wait for us to be bald and fat and sitting in a rocking chair, like, showing off our missing teeth. Like, I mean, I'm like excited about that. And, but I've gone through a lot of relationships that led me to this. And so I don't mind sharing that. And again, that is a lot of DMs. It is a lot of us giving advice. And I can't sit there and think like, is our happy relationship going to make someone feel bad? Or is our happy relationship going to show that it exists?
So get out of your toxic relationship.
I don't know. And that's kind of what I was saying. It's not our responsibility. It's other people's of like, if I'm making you feel bad, then please don't follow our story.
Right.
If you feel inspired, then please follow our story. And it's not like we don't really care in that sense, right? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't have control over that. Go ahead, Jose.
I was going to say, I think that sometimes too, people forget that the reason that our followers, they are not the only reasons on why we're posting, right? I think sometimes, at least for me, whenever I think about a post, I always think about, before posting anything, I always think about what will my adult children think or feel when they go back and look at some of this stuff. Sure, maybe a couple of them they might be embarrassed by, but for me, I want to feel like, because that's just where we're at with technology. I can't even imagine what it's going to be 10 years from now. But the reality is we live in a social media driven world. And so I want to make sure that I create this timeline, this visual timeline that my children can go back and have this virtual album of their lives, and also balance of feeling like, oh, I gave London as much attention as Avery and Lila. I don't want them to go back and feel bad, but I also want them to know that their dad stood for something, right? And with all the loss that I've experienced, I lost my parents many years ago. And with the loss that I've experienced, I want to leave something behind for them, because anything can happen. And I mean this wholeheartedly, if something were to happen to me tomorrow, I would feel really confident that my kids will have a wealth of information. And
I completely agree.
Yeah,
That's what we talk about with our YouTube.
I don't have a single video of me when I was a kid. The first videos are like when I'm a teenager, right? And so like this is, our kids have documented every week for the last 3 years now.
In our YouTube last 2 years. And that's what's even special, because my mom, she doesn't live near us, and she's probably our biggest fan on YouTube. And she lives for, that notification that we have a new video. She just eats it alive. And she's even told me, like, I feel like you've created this for me, because I feel like I'm there when I can't be there. And that is so special to me. Yeah. And looking back on, us talking about a memory that our kids have forgotten, and we showed that we sit down in our bed and we put the YouTube on of like when we took them to this zoo, or we took them to whatever, and we were just laughing and we're being silly. It's precious. It is precious. You
can watch them spark that memory too. They will immediately go, oh yeah. And so when kids, they easily forget some of these things.
It's everything. Like I love that.
I mean, I forget some of these things.
Yeah. I forget what I did yesterday. So maybe I should start filming everything as well. That makes a lot of sense. So Jose, I'm curious. So it's something that we get a lot of Gays with Kids, especially when we post these like adorable photos of gay dads and their kids smiling in front of the camera. A lot of the comments, like I said, is like, oh, I'm single, I'm never going to find a partner, I can never be a dad. Now, so you obviously didn't choose to be a single dad, but our biggest community of on our Facebook page is single gay dads and men that want to become dads that may be single. So it's something that people like you are doing a really good job showing that that's possible, although warts and all. But I guess how much are you getting comments and feedback or just questions from single gay people, or I guess anyone that is single that's interested in maybe trying to take on parenthood alone? And what do you tell them?
Or even asked out. Are you asked out?
Well, any hot dates through this, hopefully?
Let's see. So I think the beauty of what's happened in the last couple of years with our social media feeds is that we're also hearing from people that are not in the LGBTQ community. So for a lot of people, there seems to be, I don't know what's in the water with all the stuff that we're, consuming in our bodies, but I think more than ever, women are having more trouble getting pregnant. And so they are also looking into the LGBTQ community to see what's possible. And, I like to say, our family is no different from yours, but we are a little more colorful, right? And so I think that they feel inspired by what our community is doing. And so I do get a lot of DMs from mothers or intended mothers. And I think that's really beautiful. And also from parents also of LGBTQ kids that don't know how to handle it. I'm sure you guys must get a lot of those too, because there's always sort of like that fear of their child and what kind of life they're going to live. And they could look at your feed and be like, are you kidding? This is possible. And so, I think the DMs have been really wonderful. And I'm always honored when people reach out. It's a lot of work, answering the DMs. That's another full-time job, but
it is.
Yeah,
It is rewarding. You're right. It is.
it's I have to keep that in mind, and I try to be really intentional too. I don't know about you guys, but like I try to be intentional by not giving generic answers, even though sometimes I do. But people also feel honored. I feel honored when they're reaching out, but they also feel honored when you're replying to them, right?
Yeah.
So we try to be really more thoughtful on their responses. And yeah, of course, there's some of those like thirst. Yeah, I mean, I definitely get messages from people, and I could tell when they're sliding in my DMs and they're like pretending to make it about my kids and how cute they are.
By the way, what are you doing Tuesday night?
I'm like, I see you, Yeah, what are you doing Wednesday night?
Well, Dustin and Bert, I'm sure you get that plenty as well. Do you get a lot of like salacious DMs?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you wouldn't think like with married couple with kids that people are like, I'm gonna send you my anatomy, but yeah, it does happen.
we get that at Gays with Kids too. I'm like, I don't know who you think is running. One, and the person that runs our social media and has forever, Rosalind, is just amazing at the job. It's she's a woman, so this poor woman is having to like field all sorts of interesting photos and requests from time to time. So I'm curious where you guys all see this going, and let's say, I don't know, 5-10 years. Where do you still see yourselves doing this? Do you still see your kids involved? And yeah, why don't we start with you, Dustin and Burton?
So I don't know. I think we just take it day by day. I mean, like I don't know. Our focus really isn't necessarily social media. It's getting this farm up and going, and I definitely would love to use that as some storytelling into that process, because I think once we really get the ball rolling, it's going to be really fun and entertaining to watch. And I'm going to thrive because I'm going to be able to do a lot of things that I'm skilled at when it comes to design and interior and things like that I'm excited to share with people that I haven't necessarily been able to.
And it'll be a different dimension, right? I mean, you have kids and people can see that. And then you have this transformation story that's happening also on the other side. So people who are not even interested in Gays with Kids may be interested in watching this farm thing. So it's just another avenue. So we're not sure where that's going to take us, right? We're not sure what, and just like Jose, it'll be, the business will feed, the Instagram and showing our farm. Well, people want to come here and visit and stay in a cabin and have an event, have a wedding at our wedding venue. So those are, one will feed the other kind of.
And like we said earlier, when we were talking about our children, we have a very healthy understanding and a dialogue with our children. We're not going to force them to do anything they don't want to do. I didn't want to play basketball or football, and I was forced to do that when I was in, elementary school and junior high. So why am I going to sit there and force my children to do things that they don't want to do? No. So it's just we'll play it by ear and see. And, I think it's very interesting. Most of our engagement comes when it's Burton and I. Like if you look at the numbers, when you see our videos and things like that, when we post just him and I, our numbers go way up. It's not necessarily, I don't think people are that invested in our children as opposed to, they like the idea of that maybe one day, that I can maybe find someone that I get along with really great. And then we want to have a family together. So, we're fine with if our kids don't want to be a part of this, we're fine with that. But I don't know if we're fine with that. I'm like getting tired. I'm old. The only problem about having a YouTube for that many years, looking back and be like, oh my God, I've gotten so old.
Gray hair's coming in and everything. I hear you.
You do look at you. That's the thing too. You do look back and like, oh my gosh, I need Botox for sure.
How about you, Jose? Just as long as it stays fun and relevant?
Yeah. I've been approached to do like a couple projects that involve the kids, and there's and I've turned a couple down because I've not wanted cameras around my kids all the time because when you sign that away, it's like they get to edit it how they want, and I want control of the narrative. And so that's why one of the things I'm really excited what this has all done for me is filming this show in 2 weeks. It's been great because it's about my business, and it's a fun show, and it's an uplifting show. And Yeah, I love that. If I'm ever going to be pushed into sort of more mainstream, I like that it's going to start with my business. And, and then if there's something that my children want to be a part of, I'm totally down. But yeah, I don't know. And for me, like on the personal side, the goal is always been to show others that we are no different from your family. And I think that, that's been, one of our successes, having this, a small voice in the big movement, we've been able to do, which has been, really great. Where one thing I'll share is, next week, we're going to be on the cover of our second magazine, New York Family Magazine. And the reason I share that is not to like boast, but for both of those publications, for Parents Latina Magazine and New York Family Magazine, the first, not the first, they had moms there, but the first gay dad to ever be on their cover, which is shocking when you think about, wait, this New York magazine's been around since like 1980 something. Yeah. And I'm the first one on the cover. But again, it's sort of speaking to, hopefully what our family has been able to do for a larger exposure for other families. I don't know.
That's and cool. So when can people see the show, and where will they see the show?
The show is going to be, at the moment, it's going to air in October on Crackle, which is a streaming network. And that's considered like, market one. And then hopefully market two is when these other networks that are currently interested, they'll pick that up as well. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And then the magazine comes out next week.
That's very exciting. Congrats on all of that. And where can people find me? We'll post all this in the blog that goes along this, but where else can people find you? Anything else you want to let people know about stuff you have coming up?
Yeah, it's NYC Gay Dad across the board. And if people are interested in seeing what I do professionally with weddings, then it's Jose Rolon Events across the board.
And then Dustin and Burton, how about you guys? What do you have coming up? Anything you want people to know about?
No magazine covers, geez.
I know, it's like, what?
Well, we just wrote a big article for LA Times, and that's going to be coming out.
Oh, cool. That's not small potatoes. What's it about?
It's about our journey and kind of
same thing we talked about here today.
Yeah, our journey and how we went through that process. What we would tell other parents that are or people that want to become parents. And obviously, I kind of go into depth and something that I'm really passionate about is what would you tell the youth or people that are wanting to come out and that are scared. And so those are these moments that I am so excited about because it really taps into a place in my heart that is really important. Like we were talking about why that visibility and messaging, and it really comes down to that truly is why we do what we do is that reach for visibility and that messaging. But if you want to follow along our journey, we obviously have a YouTube, and it's called Dustin and Burton Raising Buffaloes. Our children's last names are buffaloes. We are not raising literal buffaloes. It's very ironic because our farm, we're getting alpacas. So we might have to just Dustin and Burton Raising Buffaloes and alpacas. And then my Instagram is Dustin_Patrick_Smith.
And I'm at BB Buffalo.
And then our TikTok is Dustin and Burton.
Yeah. We'll link to all this in the blog post, so don't worry, everyone. Thank you, all three of you, for everything you're doing for visibility for our families. You're a lot of fun to follow. I'm sure a lot of our followers already are, but if you are not, definitely start following. It's a good time. Thank you so much for being on the pod today. This has been a great. We could do this for another hour, I'm sure, but I think it's long enough.
I got a date in about 10 minutes.
Hey, get out of here.
Someone that slipped into your DMs or no?
Same.
Perhaps.
Okay, thank you guys again so much.
Hey, thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.